This week on Focus on Photography, we take a look at being a personal photographer for a big Instagram influencer and also street photography. Yes, we all love it. Check it out. Focus on Photography is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they do by making access and authentication seamless. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Focus on Photography, episode 10, recorded Friday, January 3rd, 2020, for release on Thursday, January 9th, 2020. The Decisive Moment. Hey folks, I am Aunt Pruitt. He is Michael Woolsey, also known as Wools, and this is Focus on Photography here at twit.tv. Hope y'all are doing well. I'm unbelievable as always. It is time for us to sit down around these mics and bring you just a little bit of news and rumors from the world of photography and videography, and more so just sit and chat and talk about what's it like to be a photographer, videographer, creative artist, and just give you some little bit of our flow, if you will, and shed some insight and hopefully inspire you as a content creator to get out there, start shooting more, start creating more, start that business that you want to start, and just really get out there and do your thing. How you doing today, my man?
I'm good. All fired up.
He's all fired up. We're doing a little bit of a off-schedule recording here, so by the time you guys hear this will be during the week of CES, the Consumer Electronics Show. So you're probably going to catch some other content from us talking about CES and all of our findings and things like that. Some of it will be photography related. Some of the stuff will be sort of off the wall, but stay tuned for that. We're going to have some fun with it. But anyway, speaking of CES, I had something off the cuff. I know you and I, we have our proper rundown when we do this show, and I send you the notes, you send me the notes, but I'm going off the cuff.
Uh-oh.
Okay, off the cuff.
That's not fair.
Brace yourself.
Uh-oh.
CES. If you were to go to CES, what would be the one thing you would really hope to see a manufacturer creates as a photographer? What would be, best way I can put it is, what would be your dream camera? When you picked it up, what would that dream camera feel like? What would it have spec-wise? Could you do that?
Yeah, actually.
He's like, yeah, I can.
It's an interesting question, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want too much.
Right.
You just want it to be, but you want the menu to be easy.
See,
I mean, right? You want a
such
menu
a simple pleasure right there. Give me a menu access that I can read pretty simply,
or just have access to it that you're not fumbling through it.
Mm-hmm.
And, Sony is well known for kind of being a little bit more complicated.
Oh, bless their heart.
Canon though is awesome.
I love Canon menus.
Yeah. So it's a camera that can be user friendly.
User friendly.
However, but you still have control of everything that you're shooting, manual mode or whatever you want to do.
Right. And that's the thing. A lot of these cameras nowadays, they're still costing you several $1,000s, but they always miss the mark on one little thing, where it's like having a button too far to the right, or having a button that's way too small or way too large.
I have dainty hands. You have pretty big hands. So.
Well, I mean, excluding my large meat hooks for hands, but still, I can remember holding the A7 III versus the A7R4 now, just holding them in my hands and the difference that they feel, with the way they moved some of the knobs around, and it just feels better. And I also remember holding the Canon EOS R mirrorless for the first time last year or year before, and I was thinking, okay, Canon almost got it right for me as a mirrorless person, because it felt substantial.
Right.
They still screwed up a little bit. That's why I say they almost got it right, because that little touch bar thing was right there next to my thumb.
Right.
And at the time, it would cause a lot of messes. It would just activate accidentally, and I didn't want that.
That's not very fun.
Fortunately, they fixed that in firmware, but it's again, the perfect camera. I don't know how how I would describe it other than having everything just in the right spot, because what's in the right spot for me may not be the right spot for you.
Exactly right. And I think it's just really just understanding your equipment.
Yeah.
But you just want it to be easier to understand.
Mm.
Yeah. And actually, to be honest with you, so I have been using an A7R3, but I've been using old school lenses on it.
Nice.
So I don't use autofocus,
right?
Which has been really interesting for me, because I was relying on peaking, red peak.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it, because every time I use it, it's out of focus.
I was going to say it sort of depends on the person,
right?
Because I've tried that before with. There was one time I went out shooting at night, trying to shoot some astro, and I used someone else's body, and it had the peaking on it.
Uh-huh.
And just like you said, every time I previewed it, it still looked fuzzy.
Yeah.
Like, you're not doing your job. I trust my eye better, even though this computer is supposed to sort of know this stuff more than me.
Yeah.
Right?
So I have no idea where it begins and ends. If it's
right.
So I've been using there's on my camera the C1 button.
Mm-hmm.
I do close up, so you can get fine focus.
Right. And
then
then you
shoot.
pull it back out.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Which actually then takes away from the spontaneity.
Yeah, but spontaneity only matters when it needs to be spontaneous, right? Because if I'm doing astro, I don't need spontaneity.
What are you talking about?
Spontaneity. If I'm doing dadgummit, Wolves. If I'm doing astro, I don't need to be spontaneous.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, yeah. Oh, gosh, jeez, man. This is why we bring them to the show, folks. All right, we're going to move on. That's CES talk out of the way. You're going to get a lot of CES talk on our other videos and content here at twit.tv. So stay tuned for that. Okay, Wolves, I got another question, and this one is actually on the script. Okay, it's on the script, so there's no surprises. Would you like to be a personal photographer for a traveling photographer? Just be their Instagram photographer. Would you like to do that for $55,000 a year?
Actually, I've been thinking about this. I know I had an initial response, like if it's for vanity, maybe not. Mm-hmm. But if it's to tell a story, yes.
Okay.
However, I have a family.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, so I'm like, really? You're gonna do that, Wolves?
No, it would not work. However, if I didn't have a family or had other obligations, mm-hmm. I think it'd be quite fun.
All right. So
think about it. You'd be able to, how to say, travel and mm-hmm. and kind of document if the person's interesting,
right?
And if the situation's interesting, that they really want to tell a story about what they're doing, and if their work is really work for good,
right? Not necessarily vanity.
Yeah,
I get that.
I definitely would be very interested.
That's fair.
Yeah.
This is coming off of fstoppers.com. A photographer basically said, hey, I need someone that's going to help me out with some of my Instagram posts and taking care of sort of framing up the story for the shoot that I'm working on. His name is Matthew Laporte. I hope I'm saying his name.
It's out of Australia?
Right. Hopefully I'm saying his name right, but we're just going to say Matthew L for now. And he's going to pay someone $55,000 US a year, and it only requires them to use a smartphone when they're taking the photos. Okay, so that's one thing.
But you also could, he said you could bring somebody, right?
You could bring a friend. You can bring a friend, and all of your expenses will be paid. So your lodging, your travel, your I guess your food or whatever, all of that's paid, and you're going to get a $55,000 salary mm-hmm. on top of that. The question that I asked of you is like, would you do that? Because I know, number one, you're a family man. You got all of this going on, different responsibilities. Would you do this? And you right along the lines with me. If I was, say, young, single dude, mm-hmm. sure, I'd do it. Mm-hmm. Why not?
Yeah.
What I do wonder is, with this opportunity, does this photographer have time for themselves?
Interesting.
Do they have time to do their own work? Do they have time to do their own art? And is that a conflict of interest and things like that? Because the way this, when you see it online, the image that's shown there, it does sort of look like a vanity shot, so I don't know. I don't know.
The thing is too, is that I mean, you can only do so much with an iPhone, right? So if you really wanted to kind of, broaden your knowledge, it's probably not the best way to go.
Right.
If you cannot use a 35 millimeter.
All right.
Maybe you could go on the side and use your other camera to do, or convince the person that
not doing that. He's not. He's very rigid about that.
Oh, okay.
Very rigid about that. We have to use a smartphone only, and that made me think. Does he not want this assistant to steal his shine, if you will?
Oh, interesting.
I was like that, but that's just the vindictive side of me, because it's. Hey, my assistant can't be shooting better photos than me. That was the voice that was in my head. So it's like, all right, we're limiting you to only using a phone. That's it. You can't be shooting me with your new DSLR or mirrorless that you just got. You can't do that. I want you to make me look good, but don't make me look too good, because people are going to be asking who shot this photo of you.
Yeah, but you could do a lot with iPhones nowadays.
You can.
And there's great, like we were talking about Snapseed, you could use Lightroom now.
Yep.
Photoshop even.
Yep.
So you could use, it's a tool, right?
It's a tool.
And so use it as such and create on the back end and kind of add some nuances. And then you are making photographs, I guess.
I swear, this is, there's so many questions here. The next thing that came to my mind, okay, so this is for a year. What happens in year 2? Do you re-up? Do you re-interview? Do you just get dumped? Is there a new contract? Or
I wouldn't worry about it.
So I'm just curious about that. But again, if I were someone in that situation where I could just automatically say yes, I'm probably not going to worry about the next year. I'm just going to go out and do it, because I don't have children, I don't have a mortgage, I don't have car payments, and all I'm doing is just carrying around some gear and eating and sleeping and shooting. And
$55,000 you could put into your new camera equipment.
Yeah, you could, but I don't know. There's just so many questions, folks listening to this. Shoot an email to fop@twit.tv. Let me know your thoughts on this. And, if you had that opportunity, would you do it? I'm going to put a link to this article in our show notes, and we'll also link up the photographer, Mr. Matthew L., because this is his promo. This is his business model. And
he's doing something right.
He's doing something right, I guess, because he can just toss out $55K. I can't toss out $55K.
He's traveling the world. He's he's Australian. He's doing something right.
Doing something right. All right, so let's move on. I want to hit on one more thing.
This is on script?
And it is on script. And this is getting around the whole New Year's stuff. We talked about that on our previous episode. But also shooting hands-on photography. I did a tutorial about headshots, and I wanted to touch base with you and see your thoughts, because my opinion is January, February, that's headshot season. Get it. Just go ahead and go whole hog, full bore. Get your headshots done. Whether you're a consumer or whether you're a photographer, headshot season is right now, because it seems like that's like a fresh start. It's a new beginning.
Okay.
A lot of people have their resolutions and whatnot, and they could be thinking about new careers. And so they're wanting to get new headshots to put on their resume, put on their comp cards, or put on their Twitter profile,
right,
and things of that nature. So I'm thinking, as a photographer, capitalize on that. This is the season to capitalize on it. And I'm thinking, if you're a consumer, capitalize on it, because the photographers know this is that time of year to get that fresh start, and you can be able to get a shot that's going to really make you look good, other than holding your phone up in that selfie style and giving yourself a air quotes headshot.
Right.
What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I never thought of that, about headshots as being a seasonal thing. It never even occurred to me. I always feel like the first 2 months are kind of more of I say regrouping, and then in the spring you just do what you need to do. However, I just never thought of that, and it sounds very interesting to me, and makes me want to kind of like put a sign in front of my studio, say headshot.
Do it, do it. I'm telling you right now, do it. It's worked for me from a business standpoint. It's worked for me this time of year.
Oh wow,
Just
okay.
Go ahead and do it. And I say that because I've seen it sort of both sides, as a photographer as well as just being a consumer. As we know, my previous profession is in enterprise IT. And every single year, the company that I worked for, we went through this whole thing of evaluating the brand and making sure everything looks fresh and new. And every single year, those C-level executives got new headshots. Every single year, and then I use LinkedIn. I've gotten a lot of business from LinkedIn.
Really?
LinkedIn is, a lot of people sleep on LinkedIn. They always talk about Facebook. They always talk about Twitter and Instagram. But LinkedIn is where all the professionals are. I want their money.
Right.
To just be honest with you, I want their money. They're paying over there. They're not trying to haggle me and tell me that my art isn't worth it.
Right.
A professional understands another professional. So, and when you go to LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of people out there updating their resumes and just getting this new job and this new business started and things like that. There's business opportunities there for you as a photographer to go and say, hey, I can go ahead and first get some marketing shots done for you to help promote your new business or whatever. And I can also get some great headshots of you to help get the ball rolling for you.
So I have a question for you. I don't know how much you would charge somebody for a single headshot, and if it's executive versus like a person off the street.
It's a sliding scale. It's a sliding scale. I have rates that I've used, but it's a sliding scale. I will say this: I am charging enterprise IT executives more than I would charge someone off the street.
Right.
Because there's a different value. That enterprise IT is going to have a different value versus just my cousin.
Right. Right.
So yeah, and but that's with all photography though. It's going to be a sliding scale.
Right.
But definitely check out LinkedIn. Definitely just see what the needs are. And what I was trying to say on that show yesterday when I was recording it, when that tutorial was, the headshots can be a way to present a personality, a way to sort of tell a story within a millisecond of someone, seeing the image. You saw an example of it on our screens when you walked in, and the one guy with his head turned sideways.
It was a great shot.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And setting that shot up, he reached out to me saying, hey, I need new headshots because I got some promotions to do. He was a comedian.
Oh, okay.
He was a comedian back in Carolina. So I didn't want his headshot to look like a rigid C-level executive. And of course, he gave me the side eye. I was like, what are you doing, dude? And I said, no, I want you to just turn your head sideways. And as a portrait photographer, you hardly ever tell your subject to tuck their chin.
Right.
The look on his face now, folks.
There are some good tricks though. And you have people kind of leaning in so that so you don't get that
unflattering shadow and stuff. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that people, don't quite get as far as the nuance of a headshot. It's just, you want their eyes to be in focus, but it's, if you can get that pose just right, that shows that it's the person and not the photographer. Right. That's where you win.
Yeah. Well, you want to, like we were talking about last week about brand. You want to make sure that the person's, brand is showing through their portrait.
Right. It's their story. It's their brand. 100%.
See, I'm learning.
Wow. Wool's learning something from me. Boy, write that on the calendar right now. Done.
Nice.
But yeah, I wanted to share that. Just get your thoughts on it. I have on hands-on photography, it's a 2-part series. I've already discussed some of the tips and tricks and things like that. And then on the next part, I'm actually going to go in and do the post-processing because the post-processing is different too.
Oh my God.
So You can do it as a journalistic standpoint. You can do it as a glamour standpoint. It's a lot of different ways, but like you said, you got to be able to nail their brand
right
on every aspect of it.
I gotta tell you that post-processing. Oh man, yeah. And the hair color.
All of it.
Yeah, there's bags, and it's like everything.
Eye bags. Yep.
Don't want to look maybe too processed, but you want to make it so that they're okay with it.
That's right. It's a fine line.
Because people wake up very differently every morning. You might look good one day, and they come in on a day that they're kind of feeling a little something else.
This makes me think back on one of my shots. Great session, shot it, and it looked good, and I sent the proofs over or whatever, and they loved them. And they send it back, and they said, "Can you make my eyes a little more blue?"
Oh,
and that's the thing. You get little stuff like that. For me, I'm thinking, I want to enhance what they are, but I want it to be natural.
Right.
So I don't want to overdo it. Just like you say, you don't want to be too processed,
right?
If you will. But that email back says, "Can you make my eyes a little more blue?" And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's I've been working on one piece that actually the hair color is really different. So the camera caught a lot of red.
Right.
And this Canon does that.
Yeah. Yep.
And so
Canon gets a lot of red channel, and they also tend to boost saturation by default.
Exactly right. And so the gentleman's hair always turns reddish.
Right.
And so he's a blonde, brown blonde. And it's been hell.
Yeah.
And so I get it back, and I said, "Can you make it a little less?" So you have to know the post processing to kind of get that. So I should come to you to kind of figure that out.
It's the curves menu in Photoshop, and go to the red channel, and you can pull that red channel down just slightly. I've had to do that.
See what?
I've had to do that a gazillion times.
I'm going to come. I'm going back. I'm going back and.
Because you're right, Canon. That's just Canon's MO. Everybody loves Canon's color science, quote unquote. You'll read that just about everywhere. They'll fuss about everything else Canon does, but they love Canon's color science. But when I sit down with the just shooting straight out of camera, it was just too much. It was too much red. It was too punchy on the color. So I had to manually set my camera to shoot in a neutral profile, so it's flat, almost like within video C-Log or something. And that gives me a little more freedom. Granted, if I showed it to my subject on the back of the camera, they're like,
"What happened here? Where's the color?"
It's like, "What is wrong with you, dude? I'm paying you for what?" And I'm like, "No, that's just the raw file."
I never show people.
I do every now and then.
Yeah,
every now and then, because it changes their energy too.
I shouldn't say never. I do sometimes have a monitor, and so a tether, so that they can see where we're at,
and it makes a difference with their energy, because there's sometimes they are a little tense. During the shoot, and if they could see themselves in that, they try to ham it up a little bit.
Yeah, be a little bit more. Yeah,
So and again, that's another one of those tricks of the trade as a photographer, is just get them to talk to your camera, just whether it's a pose or just an attitude, if you will, and it'll all come through.
There you go.
All come through. All right. So now, before we get out of here, this one is a little bit of a passion project for Mr. Woolsey here.
Oh, for you too.
We're going to talk about some. Street photography. Now, on twit.community, that's our online forums. Someone posed a question about shooting street photography and model releases, and why do you shoot this way? Why do you shoot that way? How do you define street photography? So on and so forth. It was a pretty lengthy discussion, and it could go both ways on people loving street photography and hating street photography, and it was a fascinating discussion. And folks listening to this, if you haven't joined our Twit online community forum, go ahead and sign up. Twit.community in your browser. Hop in there. We talk about everything, whether it's consumer tech, whether it's, did you have an espresso this morning, or did you have a tea or a coffee like Mr.
Or
Woolsey,
donuts.
Or donuts. Inside joke, folks. But yeah, you get to interact with the hosts there. We have all of our show channels and stuff in there, and you can talk about the show episodes. And yeah, just join the community, twit.community, and check it out. Mr. Laporte's always in there, so you can chat with him too. But street photography, it's probably my favorite form of shooting. I love street photography, and I like to do landscapes just because I'm an introvert, and when I'm doing a street photography or a landscape, it's all sort of solo. It's all just me by myself. I hardly ever do it with a group or anything like that. It's just my zen time. I usually have some earbuds or headphones on, and the only thing I really hear is when I click the shutter. I hardly ever hear the stuff around me. It's just my moment. And I think it just helps me to have the headphones and just sort of be able to focus on the scene and see it a different way. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. I don't know. Stop looking at me like that.
Sorry. I'm interested in your process.
Yeah, but that's just me. I have my approach of street photography, and if I'm going into a bigger city, if you will, say like a Charlotte or San Francisco, and I'm just sort of, I have two approaches. My approach is I'll find a spot and I'll just camp out and just stay there, whether it's standing for an hour or sitting for an hour or sitting for 30 minutes or whatever. That's the first process. Or the other process is I'll just walk and walk and walk and walk, and I won't stop. I just walk. And the only time I stop is when I'm clicking the shutter. You know, so what are your thoughts with the art of street photography, as well as, like, can you share some of your process, because you're damn good at this? You know,
I don't know about that. Yeah, but I have to say I learned a lot in street photography. I think that was like the kitchen for me. Right. So when I was in San Francisco, actually, my first really street photography, or kind of in that direction, was when I photographed Archbishop Desmond Tutu in Marin City. And it was phenomenal. It was just one of those moments that I had no idea that I was going to go to it that day. Right. It's like one of those things that I read it in the paper, heard he was going to be there. Right. Went to Berkeley first, and then went to Marin City the next day. And that kind of got me to the moment where I need to have my camera with me every day. That sparked seriously. Nice. That I needed to have the camera with me every day. Because you never know. You never know. And so when I was in San Francisco, I had my messenger bag, had my camera in my messenger bag, and doesn't mean I shot every day. Right. But if there was something there, I can absolutely take the camera out and shoot. You're ready. And I have had some amazing moments doing it, because you talk about spontaneity. And at that time, there's a lot of protests around the Iraq War, the first one. And then the Rodney King. I was working in an area that on Mission Street, at a place called Vision Gallery, and there's Eye Gallery. That street, by the way. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. You talk about diversity and a whole bunch of stuff going on. It's amazing. I love that street. You see both ends of the spectrum. Exactly right. That way. And so I had the opportunity to kind of see things in which were pretty awesome. And I still have like very deep impressions of, like, for instance, a photograph of, I was working in this room that's called Vintage Room in this gallery, looking out, and there's this blank billboard. This guy all by himself painting it, and then the parking lot. It was awesome. Very simple, but there's those moments which taught me to feel that each photograph has to have a story, or you look at it and it puts you into question, or you look at it and it makes you feel something. Right. So it was that time where I felt like I learned a lot. And so you talk about people, photographing people. You have to be, for me, I had to be extremely sensitive. Yep. And your body has to be on in order to kind of understand who you're taking the photograph of, why you're doing it. And don't do it because you see something awful. Right. Don't do it because you see something good.
that was part of the discussion in the forum. Was people have different ethics levels, if you will. I guess that's the best way to say it. And some people are thinking, okay, just because it's a public place, you don't necessarily have to shoot it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Then there's other people that says, well, it's a public place, I can shoot it. I'm not, with crossing a line or anything like that. And it was pretty good. It wasn't an argument. It was just people were sharing their opinions, and it was a nice discussion.
Right.
And I wanted to bring it up here because some people, they don't know, for the first thing. There's a lot of people that are out there wanting to shoot street photography, but they are scared, I almost cursed, crapless about doing it, because nowadays we as a society are pretty litigious. You get sued for everything.
Mm-hmm.
You get sued for your water being too cold,
Right.
stuff like that. So a lot of people are a little bit on the edge about, I don't want to shoot this, I don't want to shoot that. And I get that. I try to tell people my practices when shooting street photography out in the public space, and I know there's people involved. Most of the time, if I can help it, I don't get a full face shot. Mm-hmm. That's just me. Mm-hmm. But sometimes that face is part of the story, so I'll take it. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, I try to shy away from snapping photographs of children.
Yes.
But it's perfectly fine to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm within my legal right, but I get it. I if I was a parent with tiny toddlers running around, I don't know if I just want anybody snapping photos of my kids without my consent.
Right.
Even though it's a public space. Mm-hmm. And then that legality stuff, that varies from state to state, city to city.
Country to country.
So right. Even like you shared a link, and we'll put it in the show notes. Was it in France? They have some really, really strict rules about shooting photographs in public. Mm-hmm. And, not only just taking your camera, but there's a fine. Right. It just.
In Amsterdam.
You have to know. Mm-hmm. So there's a limit to it, and just be careful about it. My general rule, if I am going to shoot, I always have model releases in my backpack. Mm-hmm. Always have them. And if I shoot something and it really gets my attention, and I'm like, holy crap, this is beautiful, and I'm thinking I could use this as a print or something like that, meaning I will get profit from it, I shoot it, and I go up to those people, say, hey, you look great in this shot. It tells a great story. I'm just out here doing what I do. I want to promote this and sell this or whatever. I don't necessarily say it that way, but I put it along those lines. But I want to honor your privacy and respect you and so forth. Do you mind if I was to promote this? And I just need you to sign this model release. And I've had a pretty good success rate on that. I may have been turned down maybe 10% of the time.
Oh, interesting.
Really, really low success, really, really high success rate on that. Because nowadays most people tell you, no, stop shooting me. But having that model release does protect me as a photographer just from being sued and things like that. I don't know, but that's just me. What is your approach when it comes to stuff like that?
Yeah, I think the way that I approach it for myself is that if it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Right.
And I've never had a model release because I never. It wasn't for. Basically, I was just trying to tell a story, and I'm not trying to go into a profit situation. And so, and I never really published them. It's just more for kind of for me to see the world differently.
Yep. That's how most of mine are. But like I said, there's been that one shot, and I'm like, I could see that on the billboards.
Right. Yeah, that's actually very fortunate.
And I tell them, I'm like, you know what? I got to let you know this could end up somewhere.
And I think that's smart, man. I really do. I think that's great that you have that and that you're doing that because it's because it allows you to be able to work with that image differently. I saw this one guy, journalist, who didn't quite understand his environment.
Oh boy.
And there's a whole bunch of people coming up the street. And he started shooting. And I put my camera behind me. I just knew that this was not right.
Right.
And he was pummeled.
Right.
And I had to go in and underneath these guys' legs, pull him out.
Oh, man.
And bring him into a church.
Oh, man.
It was, myself and a couple other guys.
Right.
And so I photographed him.
Right. There's a story.
It was
that. There's a story in that.
But it was scary.
Gosh, man.
He just did not read his environment right.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what the one thing one should do is just read your environment.
Yeah. So with street photography, I know you totally vibe off of the spontaneity of it, but have you ever scouted a scene? Just sort of driving around and saying, I'm going to go back and shoot there tomorrow. It looks like it could be interesting. Have you ever thought about doing something like that? I do that from time to time.
Right. I think I had done that in the past where I just be very interested in a certain place. And so I just walk around.
Yeah. And
there might be somebody who's extremely interesting. Matter of fact, I wanted to go after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving Day, or after Thanksgiving, excuse me. And I wanted to go downtown and see what downtown was like, San Francisco. And so I walked around various different areas and went by the Ansel Adams Center at that time. And there's this gentleman, and really beautiful. He must have been in his early 70s or so, just beautiful. And we started talking, and he saw I had a camera, and I absolutely wanted to photograph him. So I wanted to have a conversation with him because I didn't want to just shoot him because I really wanted to have a relationship with him beforehand.
Right.
And I photographed him, but then I wanted to photograph his hand. So I had him stick his hand up on a wall. It became one of those epic images.
I love that.
That I ever photographed. And my friends and I went back and did sepia and selenium toned.
Oh,
and just the vein, the whole, his hand was just absolutely gorgeous. And he said, "Man, I just had the best Thanksgiving ever."
Right.
It just the night,
that moment.
The night before, and he says, I'm just full. So I had to walk around. And it was just a great moment.
That.
And I think
simple pleasures.
And Diana Arbus did the same thing, and many other photographers have done it. Have done the same thing where you just start a simple conversation, and then ask, and then you have a different kind of image. It's a little bit more relaxed. You're not intense.
They're not tense.
They get to know you just for a second, and it's a moment. Think about it. It's just a moment of time. You're not going to ever see that person again.
Right.
You have the image, so that moment has a deep impression.
Right.
And it's like and that image is forever going to be living in a different way. It's almost priceless.
That's right.
Or timeless, I should say.
That brings up another point. Going back to that thread in the Twit community, is it spawned from a shot that I snapped down at Pier 39, and there was a gentleman out there playing the drums. What do you call it? Bosking. I can't never think of the term, but he was out there just playing drums and accepting tips, and I could see him off in the distance. I could actually hear him, and I had my 85 because I'm trying to shoot more with that 85, just to force myself. And I'm walking up, and I finally got an eye of him, and he saw me. I saw him. I winked. He nodded and winked, and that was my signal.
Oh, sweet, man. That's great.
Shot. So he posed and gave me like the deuce fingers or whatever, and then I took the shot, and it's beautiful.
Great.
But that's a little bit how I pretty much approach street photography. If I can get that eye contact, and it's a signal. And a lot of times I've found that people will engage positively. They'll wink back. They will pose for you.
Yeah.
They will come up and ask questions. They'll want to know more. They'll want your card. They'll end up wanting to be a customer. But that's just my experience. And then there's other times where I'm shooting in downtown Charlotte at 5:05 p.m. as all of the bankers are coming out of the building, and there's a whole different emotion.
Right.
It's a whole different facial expression and energy, and it's some of the best shots that I've done, just because I knew the time of day, I knew what those 9 to 5 people were doing,
and the lighting there is really amazing, right?
Right. You know, so it's
nice silhouettes, nice perspectives.
It's a whole different approach versus making that eye contact with someone and say, "Hey, I'd love to take your shot."
So I have a proposal for you. So when you're doing street photography, if you're going downtown and whatnot, is to kind of act as or be like a ghost. Just try not to have your presence there.
That's going to be a challenge.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I've actually, it's a very interesting task.
Let me say this, because there's 2 reasons that I will struggle with this, because where I came from, I had to learn to be, conspicuous. I needed to make sure I was visible.
Okay.
I needed to make sure I was seen for my own safety.
Okay.
You know, and I'm pretty sure if you go to the trunk of my car right now, there is a shirt in there, and it's an orange shirt, or there's a sweatshirt or something. There's a bright colored shirt.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I typically keep one in my car when I do my photo walks, because there's been so much that's happened in our society. I just need to make sure I'm seen.
Okay.
I don't want to be confused as someone doing something nefarious or anything like that. And so there's a challenge, because a lot of times they see me,
right,
and then they see the camera, and sometimes that camera can make them uncomfortable.
Right. Yes.
You know, but fortunately, I've been lucky and get people to still want to engage. But far as just being a ghost, I'm going to have to work on that.
Right.
It's probably a little easier for me here in California, but where I come from, I didn't want to be a ghost.
Right. I didn't
definitely.
So
needed to be
I think
seen.
what I meant by a ghost, I mean, just like, how can one like you
just sort of blend?
Well, that, but also I think for you kind of talked about the other day about meditation, like you somehow quiet the body,
right?
So that you are walking through, and you could be seen, but walk through in a way that's a little bit less. I know for myself, I can tend to be like, I could be tense,
right?
And people feel that,
right?
So how can you feel less tense?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and so you could be visible,
being less deliberate.
Exactly right, and more fluid. And
I feel you on that.
Because I think sometimes part of the relationship is actually how people see you.
I feel you on that, and I'm thinking back. I have had moments of where I wanted to shoot so bad it was you could see it in my walk, in my gait, if you will. You know, it was like, all right, I got to hurry up and get down here, dude. Just chill. There's a shot along the way. Yeah, I get that.
There's a great documentary I saw a couple years ago. It's called, what's it called? It's called Everybody's Street, and it's about street photography. I highly recommend it.
Everybody's Street? That sounds familiar.
It's very good, and it has all these amazing photographers in it.
Dang, that sounds familiar.
It has Boogie in there. It has
was it Amazon or Netflix? Seems like I've seen that on my
Mary
screen.
Ellen Marks. It's Freeman. All these great photographers, and it's intense. And this Gilden, who actually does flash photography on people, and it's like it's very good. I highly recommend it. And it's just various different approaches to street photography from these very different photographers. And there's quite a few photographers in this documentary.
All right.
It's brilliant.
I'm going to have to look
really
it up.
brilliant.
Like
and there's some photographers you think, oh no, he didn't. See? And then there's some photographers, yes. You know, it's great. And you'll find who you match with. And so therefore you'll kind of maybe study that person or see how they learn more about that photographer. But I got to tell you, that's a great documentary.
I'm going to look that up because it seems like I've seen that because it sounds familiar. But I'm going to look it up and link to it so our listeners can check it out themselves as well. But to put a bow on this, again, street photography, it's such a compelling art form that I think gets overlooked because there's so many stories that are out there. If you're a beginner photographer, at least this is how I got started with it, because not everybody wanted me to take their picture. I go and ask family members, hey, can I practice taking photos with you? No. You know,
Right.
Ask a friend. No. So you're stuck just shooting with whatever you can shoot, you know, the inanimate things in your home or in your yard or whatever. And I was like, I need to get out and see what it's like to capture faces and emotions. And that's how I decided to start walking down the city streets back in Carolina. And it helped me understand, you know, again, the emotions, and to understand the time of day, because the lighting changed throughout the day. Framing, you know, if they're standing over here, what does it look like with that in the background? And, you know, so it's a great way to help hone your skills and learn how to tell a story.
And be yourself in the environment.
Yeah, and just be you.
Yeah. And it's actually really, I find it extremely helpful to do that, to put yourself in an unknown place. Because you guaranteed that day you might not have a shot.
Right.
Or someday you might, or sometimes you do have a shot, or maybe one shot that really says it all. It's a real hit and miss.
It is.
But it's a great way to kind of hone your, like you say, hone your skills, hone your vision, hone the way you see, and also feel yourself in that place. Who are you in that place?
And like you said, if you don't feel right shooting it, don't.
Right.
Just don't. And if you feel comfortable with it, but think that there may be some potential litigation issues or what have you, have a model release in your pocket. I'll put links to some sample model releases that you can download and fold up and put in your camera bag. No big deal. Just to cover your butt if you need to, you know. And if it comes to confrontational, don't be confrontational.
No, never.
Just leave. Just put the camera away, walk away.
Yeah, and if they give you a look that says no.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. And street photography doesn't need to be with people either.
Doesn't need to be with people,
right?
Nope.
There's many different ways of looking at the world, and it doesn't have to include people.
We're going to link to this beautiful article from I can never say this word, dude. Photo Argus.
Oh, right.
PhotoArgus.com with some great examples, and it has a lot of information regarding, you know, the energy that you put into it, regarding the privacy aspect that people are concerned about, and just some great examples that may even inspire you to go out there and look for stuff similar to this and see if you can capture fascinating stories the way all of these photographers did. So yeah, that was fun. That was cathartic. I love this conversation.
Yeah, it's actually fun, isn't it? I wanted
to bring this stuff up to you because I knew it was going to fire you up. I knew it was going to fire you up. We're going to go ahead and get on up out of here for this week's episode. Dude, we just started this new year, and boy, we are hitting it running. We're getting a good start, man.
Yeah, and next couple weeks, we're going to do a guest, right? Who's our next guest?
We have a next guest. Oh, dang it. I can't remember our guest. Uh-oh. Don't tell them. Don't worry. Just stay tuned. How about that? Just stay tuned. It's going to be fun. I do know we have a repeat guest coming very soon. Miss Lisa Carney will be back soon.
Oh, sweet.
She will be back soon, so stay tuned for that.
And Steve?
And Steve Brazel, he will be back soon too. So this is, again, we're going to have a lot of fun on this show, man, and we're just going to be us. That's all we're going to do. We're going to be us.
I like you. I like us.
Folks, sign up on and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher of choice. Just search for Focus on Photography here on twitch.tv. Hit that subscribe button. After you've subscribed, be sure to hit the share button as well and share it out. Let everybody know what you're listening to, and let everybody know more about the show, because they just may be interested and want to join in on these conversations. And as previously mentioned, be sure to check out our online forum. That's twit.community. And hop in there and join our conversation with me and Wolves. Have you joined up with the community yet? That looks like a no. You haven't said anything. Mr. John, did you see that? If only we had a camera on.
I know, right?
Now. No, but
deer in headlights. I'm right after this. Yes. Sorry.
Sign up. There's nothing to it. It doesn't cost a thing, and you can see some pretty fascinating conversations. We actually have a weekly photo thread where the community members are posting their favorite photos that they shot for the week.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
And there's discussions about it, and it's
busted.
It's friendly. You know, it's friendly. We're not in there giving people a hard time saying you overexposed this and blah, blah, blah. No, it's good vibes in there. I love our Twit online forum. So that's twit.community in your browser or on your mobile device, and go ahead and check that out. Be sure to check out all the other shows here on the network. We have Hands-On Photography that's recording each and every Thursday as well. That's my other show, as well as we got some new stuff coming here very soon at twit.tv. We're announcing a couple more new shows, so stay tuned for all of those announcements. And follow us on the social media platforms. Mr. Woolsey is Hey Wools on the Instagram and on Twitter. I am ant_Pruitt on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to follow Twit on those social medias. And particularly, check out the TikTok channel, and it's called Twit Talk. And you'll be surprised at some of the stuff you see on there, because it's a lot of behind the scenes action here at the twit.tv studio, and you get to see some of the interesting things that are said by me that I didn't realize I said. It just got caught on camera.
Hot mic.
So check that out. And we're also on Instagram and Twitter. So that's twit.tv on Instagram, and it's just twit on Twitter. Okay, folks, join us each week, Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, recording it live on live.twit.tv if you want to check us out. And other than that, you'll be able to just catch it in your podcatcher on Thursdays. Okay? For Mr. Michael Woolsey, for my man, Mr. Brockman, handling it over there in the edit bay and studio. Man, you always making us sound good. Thank you very much, sir. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Get on out there, create, and dominate. We'll see you.
Have a good one.